Hey, good morning. I totally
Morning.
just realized
What?
that I didn't grab my headphones. And so there
Well,
might be an echo. If there is, I will
I
run and
don't
go
hear
grab
it.
them.
Go. I'll
Uh,
entertain everybody.
okay. Well, let's just see. It's possible my mic isn't going to pick it up. But hey, with all that lovely going live fun, welcome to Jeff and Gabe talk about getting ethics in, and one of the I'd say more damaging aspects to Scientology. Ethics itself is pretty damaging, and enforcing ethics on other people is, I think, one of the worst parts of ethics. So that's what we're going to be
Yeah.
discussing, and we're going to be using Mr. Tom Cruise and his antics as an example of exactly what it looks like, because he personifies it so well. Would you
He's the
agree?
poster boy. Yeah, he's definitely the poster boy for ethics.
Yeah. So if anybody in the chat will let me know if the audio is fine, that'd be great. I can hear Gabe through my speakers, so it should be fine. But let me know if there's an echo, because I don't want you guys dealing with an echo all this time.
Yeah, that's
So,
annoying.
Gabe,
Yes, dear.
you were, for anyone who doesn't know, an ethics officer. So your job was to put people's ethics in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. You probably put my ethics in on a few times too.
Oh, more than once, yes.
Yeah, at least 10 times. But anyway, let's not get into that.
Yeah.
um, okay, so what's the definition of ethics, and what does it mean to put someone's ethics in
Oh
a
my God.
Scientology scene?
In Scientology.
Yeah.
Well, I do have there's lots of definitions of ethics.
Okay.
But generally speaking, it's a code of conduct that you're supposed to follow as laid out in like the ethics book, with, I guess, under the what is it called? The misdemeanors, crimes, and high crimes.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, that's how you're supposed to, those are your guidelines.
Right.
And the whole purpose of ethics is there to get the technology in. In other words, if your ethics aren't in, if you're not following the rules and towing the party line, then the technology, like the auditing and all that crap, is not going to actually sink into your head.
Right.
So if somebody was, quote, misbehaving, it was my job to make sure that they got themselves on the straight and narrow and towed the party line. So
Okay.
then they could go and get their auditing or go back on course and that kind of crap.
And so here's thank you for that. So here's the funny thing, because we've been chatting behind the scenes a little bit, and you're kind of mentioning, hey, can we get into like the double standard and the double meanings of things?
Yeah.
So my definition of ethics, as per Scientology,
Mhm.
is ethics is a personal thing.
Right.
It's the actions and things that someone does in order to increase one's survival. Right? So that's a definition of ethics I can actually get behind.
Right.
Whereas what it usually gets represented or occurs as is
In real
actually
life.
a justice action, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
putting someone's ethics in is more of a justice action. It's the group
Right.
enacting some sort of punishment on that person
Hmm.
to correct their behavior and
Right.
enforce values and boundaries and so forth on the other person to make them more submissive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And I've
that's kind of
always
what,
had a problem with that. It's just
yeah,
like if you're getting a security check or interrogation, if you're sent to interrogation, that it's said, like your CS would say, it's in order to get the person's ethics in. Like, you remember you had that, right? It's
no,
like, right.
maybe.
But in fact, it's a justice action. It is always, it's just something that irritated me so much. Always, like, it niggles at you going, no, that's actually justice.
Yeah.
Because somebody else is doing it to you. It's the different flows, as they say in Scientology.
Yeah, exactly. And that is kind of the point.
Hmm.
Ethics is a thing you do to yourself to make yourself doing better.
Yeah.
and then justice is anything else. Now, and I'm gonna preface something like you don't have to be having grown up in Scientology to have all this affect you so deeply. I personally think that the thought and the actions of getting someone's ethics in is less common in someone who's was just a public
Yeah.
Scientologist, because generally speaking, their ethics is being put in. But when you join staff at a Class 5 org or a Sea org, especially, um, there is this ingrained impulse to correct other people's actions,
Mm-hmm.
right? You become responsible for making sure that people are doing the right thing, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
That conforms to your values because you see it, and it's basically being a Karen, right? Like, or a Darren if you're a guy. So
Oh,
you
I didn't know that. Darren. So
oh
Darren is the male version of Karen.
yeah, as far as I understand it,
Okay,
I'm
I'll
sure
go with
there's
that.
other ones too, but so I'm going to speak from my own personal experience. I do this in certain circumstances, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly do this when there's a trauma response. So if
Mm.
something is re-stimulating me or is triggering
Trigger.
me, that trauma response will come out, and my uh, my reaction tends to be fight. So you
Yep.
got, fight, flight, fawn, freeze, right? And there's some other little more detailed ones, but mine's fight. What would you say is yours? Have you kind of identified that as a
Fight.
fight? Yeah. And
Absolutely,
I would
110%.
Yeah, and I would imagine if there's any ex-Scientologists in the chat here, if you want to throw out your trauma response and let us know, I would argue that probably 90% of the responses is going to be fight. As you can see what's happening in the community at times.
Yeah.
Ex-Scientologists love to fight each other, and somehow they think it's going to help anything, and all it does is screw everything up for the
Yeah.
rest of us. But we won't get too deep into that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's very common, and it's because it's taught, it's ingrained. If you've been in Scientology for 20 years, and you've learned all the ethics stuff, and you've been a person who's putting other people's ethics in, you're writing knowledge reports, you're gonna fight, right?
Yeah. You are indoctrinated into it from the very beginning. As staff members, as soon as you do your first course, you're introduced to the knowledge reports policy and all the ethics policies. So, I mean, like right off the bat, it's basically your hat as a Scientologist to put other people's ethics in. And I believe the Sea Org motto is, what is it? Getting ethics in on the planet or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's paraphrased, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's completely ingrained. You're given it's totally okay. It's carte blanche. You can say and do pretty much whatever you want to other people under the guise of you're putting their ethics in.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to show a few clips coming up here of Tom Cruise doing this. And the reason I'm using Tom Cruise is because he is kind of the gold standard. He is, other than David Miscavige, he
Yeah.
is probably the most powerful person in Scientology. And he's not even a Sea Org member or a staff member. He never has been. But he has that,
Yeah.
um, what we would call ethics presence or altitude or elitism or whatever. He has
Mhm.
this status
Karen.
of, he is to be listened to at all times. And I was thinking about this morning that Tom Cruise might actually be more powerful than people like Dave Miscavige and stuff, because not only does he have
Mhm.
the real world of being in our world, a celebrity
Yeah.
and so forth, but also in Scientology. Whereas if a Sea Org member came out of Scientology and just started bossing people around, you'd be like, "Who the fuck are you?
Yes.
Why are you telling me what to do?" Whereas Tom Cruise is like, everyone listens, right? So
Allegedly.
allegedly. All
I'm
right.
sure
Well,
some people are behind his back going, who the heck do you think you are?
yeah.
Right?
I also realize that I am going to have to go grab my headphones because I will need to turn the volume up on this. So, are you
Okay.
okay keeping people entertained for a few
Oh, I don't
minutes?
know if I
Of
can do.
course
Yes,
you are. I'll be right back.
yeah. So I think Tom Cruise is the ultimate Karen, my opinion, from what he's shown of himself in real life, and it is that kind of behavior, ripping people apart, calling them names, degrading them, is really it's unacceptable in the real world. So and we're going to see some prime examples of Mr. Tom Cruise being the ultimate Karen.
That he is. All right, let me see if I can get my ear hooked up here.
All right.
There it is. And I've also gained a dog who followed me upstairs. So
That's
we'll see
okay.
if he makes
I've
any
got one
weird
on the
sounds.
bed you can't see.
Yeah. Hey, Julie, I don't listen to Tom Cruise. I can't stand him.
I know.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
Let
look,
me.
there's an imposter. Oh, that's my husband, Chuck.
Put your pants on, Chuck.
Okay.
He had his pants on. He just got out of the shower. That's cute.
Oh dear. All right. Let's jump
Let it
on
rip.
to. Well,
Hey,
let's
can I
see if I
start
got.
stuff?
There we go.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can start stuff. Okay, so let's hope that this audio comes through. I did click share audio, and we will jump onto this. So, little context: this is obviously Matt Lauer. We won't talk about Matt Lauer. We realize what's happened to him. He's been canceled for various reasons. But back in 2005, when this interview happened, he was very much not canceled, and he's talking about to Tom Cruise about psychiatric drugs and how Tom Cruise is the authority on psychiatric drugs because he's done quote unquote all the research. And he's going to be discussing about Brooke Shields taking antidepressants when she was going through and experiencing postpartum depression after the birth of, I believe, her daughter. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, let's give it a listen. And then Gabe and I'll chat about it afterwards.
Coming up, the mood changes a bit. You're going to see a fiery Tom Cruise talk about his attack on Brooke Shields, antidepressants, and Ritalin for kids. Here's a sneak peek. It's very impressive to listen to you because clearly you've done the homework and you know the subject.
And you should. And you should do that also, because just knowing people who are on Ritalin isn't enough. You should be a little bit more responsible in knowing
I'm
really.
not prescribing Ritalin, Tom, and I'm not asking anyone else. It gets a little testy, and you'll see that coming up in our next half hour. And the tone of the discussion took a turn.
I've never agreed with psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry. And then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry. And as
Now, just to clarify, when he says he's studied psychiatry, that means that he went to the Psychiatry and Industry of Death Museum a couple times and read some booklets made by Scientology. So, having studied some of psychiatry and stuff recently, it's he didn't do studies. Let's just say that.
why I didn't agree with psychiatry. And as far as the Brooke Shields thing is, look, you got to understand, I really care about Brooke Shields. I think here's a wonderful and talented woman. And I want to see her do well. And I know that psychiatry is a pseudo-science.
But Tom, if she said that this particular thing helped her feel better, whether it was the antidepressant or going to a counselor or a psychiatrist, isn't that enough?
Matt, you have to understand this. Here we are today, where I talk out against drugs and psychiatric abuses of electric shocking people, okay, against their will, of drugging children, with them not knowing the effects of these drugs. Do you know what Adderall is? Do you know Ritalin? Do you know now that Ritalin is a street drug?
And just to comment on that, yes, Ritalin is and was a street drug, but so was whipping cream containers. And so
Jesus Christ.
it's not a very good argument to make about this.
Ay,
A
ay,
lot
ay.
of things are used as a street drug. Doesn't mean that they don't work in the appropriate settings. Although whipping cream is never good for treating any kind of disease.
Do you understand that?
The difference is this was
No,
not
Matt,
against
Matt,
her
I'm
will,
asking-
though.
Matt, I'm
But this
Matt,
wasn't
I'm
against
asking you a
Brooke's will.
question. Matt, I'm asking you a question.
I understand there's
no,
abuse of all of these things.
No, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
Aren't there examples, and might not Brooke Shields be an example of someone who benefited from one of those drugs?
All it does is mask the problem, Matt. And if you understand the history of it, it masks the problem. That's what it does. That's all it does. You're not getting to the reason why. There is no such thing as a chemical imbalance.
So
in a body.
postpartum depression to you is
Matt,
kind of a little psychological gobbledygook?
No, I did not say that.
I'm just asking what would you call it?
Matt, that is the post. Now you're talking about two different things.
But that's what she went on the antidepressant for.
But what happens, the antidepressant, all it does is mask the problem. There's ways of vitamins and through exercise and various things. I'm not saying that that isn't real. That's not what I'm saying. That's an alteration of what I'm saying. I'm saying that drugs.
That's a good freeze frame right there.
That's good.
The interesting thing I'm hearing, like when he's talking about here, he's using so much Scientologies, like an alteration of what I'm saying, and he is talking over him, and I love this comment. Dr. Thomas C. Mapother the fourth, MD.
Yeah, the way he's talking to Matt, you don't understand. That's like it's degrading. It's like, look how stupid you are. And that is exactly the tone, that authoritarian type of tone, to just squish your opponent down. And it's done all the time. And I mean, this is like a little bit on the subtle side, I think. But doesn't he try to make Matt look stupid, like he doesn't know anything, and invalidate him?
That's what he's doing constantly.
It's so gross.
It is. And honestly, like, Tom Cruise has such an inflated ego. It's disgusting. And of course he is, whether it's from his upbringing, the fact that he's been in Hollywood all the time, or whatever, maybe a combination of everything, he's absolutely a narcissistic person, right? Like, at least he has the traits. Maybe he's not diagnosable, but he has a lot of the traits. It's very much about him and his importance and all this stuff, and not other people. Like, other people are lucky to be around him, kind of thing. And that comes through when he's talking like this. That is truly Tom Cruise. That's who he is. Everything else you see where he's like goofing around with James Corden or whatever, all this celebrity stuff, that's not Tom Cruise. That's Tom Cruise, the actor. But this is who Tom Cruise really is.
Yeah.
And I think it's important
the
to show that.
Yeah, the hardcore Scientologist. This is quite some time ago. He's pretty amped up here too. Like, he's such a dick.
This is 20 years ago. Just under. I think it's 19 years ago. So
what the heck was going on then? Oh, this was just before War of the Worlds. I saw that was around that time when that movie came out.
Yeah, that's what he was promoting in this, and then it went on to other things. But let's carry on.
Okay.
What I'm saying that drugs aren't the answer. That these drugs are very dangerous. They're mind-altering, antipsychotic drugs. And there are ways of doing it without that, so that we don't end up in a brave new world. The thing that I'm saying about Brooke is that there's misinformation, okay? And she doesn't understand the history of psychiatry. She doesn't understand in the same way that you don't understand it, man.
But a little bit what you're saying, Tom, is you say you want people to do well, but you want them to do well by taking the road that you approve of, as opposed to a road that may work for them.
No, I'm not.
Well, if antidepressants work for Brooke Shields, why isn't that okay?
I disagree with it.
And here we go. As I was saying earlier, enforcing one's values and boundaries onto others.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't agree with it.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's not
Therefore,
okay.
yeah, for anybody.
Like, who are you, Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
You know? Like,
And
this is what Scientology does. This is the result of Scientology right here.
mhm. It's the I know better than anybody else, and all you people are just peons.
Yeah.
Brooke doesn't know anything about it. Matt Lauer doesn't know any. Nobody knows, but I do.
Yeah.
It's just like it's so irritating. You just want to slap him because it's so
With a
unacceptable in
with
the real world.
slap him with a dirty nappy, as Haggis Basher
Oh
says.
yeah, exactly.
All right, let's carry on.
And I
Yeah.
think that there's a higher and better quality of life. And I think that promoting, for me personally, see, you're saying, what, I can't discuss what I want to discuss?
No, you absolutely
I know,
can.
but Matt, you're going in and saying that I can't discuss that.
I'm only asking, isn't there a possibility that, do you examine the possibility that these things do work for some people? That yes, there are abuses. And yes, maybe they've gone too far in certain areas. Maybe there are too many kids on Ritalin. Maybe electric
Too
shock
many
is.
kids on Ritalin. Matt,
I'm just saying, but aren't there
Matt,
examples where it works?
Matt, you don't even, you're glib. You don't even know what Ritalin is.
Oh
You
God,
start talking
no.
about
Okay, so when has anybody in the real world ever said, "Hey, buddy, you're glib"?
You're glib.
That
What's
is such a
glib?
Scientology thing.
Glib is
You
like
know
you
what glib
only
is.
know, like you don't know anything. You're stupid, in other words.
So
You
basically, glib is a non-deep understanding of something in
yeah,
Scientology. So you can like recite things, but you can't actually apply it, right?
yeah,
That's what he means by glib. Although
yeah.
I think he's using the term incorrectly in this, but
No,
maybe he
I
just
think
needs a word clearer.
yeah, he's just like the guy. He's saying the guy only knows shit on a surface level. He doesn't deeply understand things like Tom Cruise does. And here, this is that black and white thinking, like in full living color.
Yep. And this
He
is why I'm showing this, because
yes,
it's
yes.
important to understand that perhaps things that are happening in the community now with other people who are in the community, their learning is so ingrained that this stuff just comes out. You don't even think about it.
Mhm,
And it's very easy to I shouldn't say it's easy. It's once you get the techniques down, you can get over it and kind of like move past it. At least that's been my experience. But once you get to it's like it's a window of tolerance. Once you get past a certain point, you start reverting back to these old teachings, right?
mhm.
And so it's interesting to watch this and kind of like see what things are what is happening with other people as far as trauma responses go. But it really demonstrates what a Scientology viewpoint is, and I think that's why it's important, right? So
Yeah, it is a very natural response. I
mhm.
know in my dealings, just on a personal note with my husband, for instance, we're both ex-Scientologists. Oops. That that thing comes out that whatever that indoctrination is, it does it when you it's your default reaction. You know what I mean? And it takes a lot of retraining your brain to not protect yourself like that. When you're in the cult, you are always having to defend yourself because you're always being attacked. You're being attacked for low stats or whatever it is. It's like it's never like woo, all rainbows and butterflies. You're always on guard. So it's kind of like it's hard to blame them for it because it's such a natural reaction for anybody who's been in that situation. It's also like somebody who's been in domestic abuse. It's like you're always in fear and you're always trying to protect yourself and not get hurt. So there's that anger response, and it's like kill the other guy before you get killed.
Yeah.
That's
Or
in my experience how my stupid brain works.
well, you remove that one word from that sentence,
Okay,
please.
no
But
stupid.
yeah,
My
no
weird
stupid.
brain.
Okay. But always attack, never defend. Right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
ingrained. So
Yeah.
let's keep watching Tom Cruise here.
It's painful.
You don't even know what Ritalin is. If you start talking about chemical imbalance, you have to evaluate and read the research papers on how they came up with these theories, Matt. Okay? That's what I've done. And you go and you say, where's the medical test? Where's the blood test that says how much Ritalin you're supposed to get?
It's very impressive to listen to you because clearly you've done the homework and you know the subject.
And you should. And you should do that also, because just knowing people who are on Ritalin isn't enough. You should be a little bit more responsible in knowing
I'm
really.
not prescribing Ritalin, Tom, and I'm not asking anyone else to do
well,
it. I'm
you are.
simply
You're saying no.
I know some people who seem to have been helped by it.
But it's like this is a very important issue.
This is a very,
and you know what? And you're here on the Today Show,
right?
And to talk about it in a way of saying, well, isn't it okay, and being reasonable about it when you don't know, and I do. I think that you should be a little bit more responsible in knowing what it is, because you communicate to people.
But you're now telling me that your experiences with the people I know, which are zero, are more important than my experiences.
What do you mean by that?
I think that's a really good point. When he's talking about responsibility and so forth, I think there is definitely this idea that in Scientology that you're responsible for everything, and if you're not doing everything you can every single second of the day, then you're not doing enough, right? And I see that coming out in various people as well, right? Where you can't just do a little thing, and I see it myself too, where it's an all or nothing type stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not doing the best you can do all the time, 100%, 120% all the time, you're not doing good enough.
Oh, it just makes me want to throw up.
Yeah.
You see the SP chefs? By the way, I can't star, but see the SP chef has a comment here, which is very valid.
I don't see it. How come you can't
and
star?
where-
That doesn't make any sense.
Huh? I don't know. Whatever. I don't understand. Do I have to switch? I don't know what to do.
What was the comment? What was the comment?
He said, and where is the research for 4,000 milligrams there?
Oh, we won't even get into Tom Cruise and his response to 9/11.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
he's so right. Again, here's the contradictions, right? It's like this data works for me, so I'm gonna spout how truthful all this research is that I've done, but turn it around. Let's take a look at what kind of research was done for the Purif, or what Scientology auditing does to people. There was never research, even though he says that there was in Dianetics, how he's tested it on people. It was all bullshit.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And if anyone here is watching right now, put a 1 in the chat if you think that Tom Cruise has ever sat down to read a research paper. I'll hold my breath. Oh, there should be no 1s in the chat, just so you know.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
You're telling me what's worked for people I know or hasn't worked for people I know, and I'm telling you I've lived with these people, and they're better.
So you're advocating it?
I am not. I'm telling you, in their case, in their individual case, it worked. I am not going to go out and say, get your kids on Ritalin, it's the cure-all and the end-all.
Matt, but here's the point. What is an ideal scene in life? Okay. Ideal scene is someone not having to take antipsychotic drugs.
I would agree.
Okay, so now you look at it and you go, okay, a departure from that ideal scene is someone taking drugs. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you go, okay, what is the theory and the science behind that justifies that?
Let me take this more general, because I think you and I could go around in circles on this for a while, and I respect your opinion on it. Do you want more people to understand Scientology? Would that be a goal of yours?
You know what? Absolutely, of course. You know,
How do you go about that?
You just communicate about it. And the important thing is, like, you and I talk about it, whether it's, look, if I want to know something, I go and find out, because I don't talk about things that I don't understand. I'll say, you know what?
Yes, you do, Tom. Yes, you do.
All the
You're
time.
doing it right now. Anyway, that's the end of
Did
the
you
clip. He just goes on to
be irritating even
explain
more?
how amazing he is, and he never talks about anything he doesn't understand after reading all those research papers. What are your thoughts on that one, Gabe?
Did you notice how he threw in some of his data evaluators data? There's a
Yes.
course called what is it called? The data evaluators course or
Yeah,
something
data
like
evaluators
that.
course, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like a way to evaluate situations and figure out problems or why something is the way it is. So he's basically he's just spouting more Scientology mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, Haggis Basher, you're so funny.
what is this?
I'm gonna not say that word just
Oh.
because YouTube, but does Tom Cruise know about the chemistry of the brain and how life itself causes stress? And
Yeah.
if he was doing all the same stuff non-celeb scientos do, he would be in terrible mental state. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no such thing
The
as stress in Scientology. It's
the funny thing is,
PTSD.
true. With that comment about, so Tom Cruise says that there are no blood tests for ADHD or whatever, and it is true, because it's still an emerging subject that they're learning so much about brain chemistry. It's not like
Yeah.
you can just go in and be like, oh, with a magnifying glass, like, oh, there's serotonin, and this is what's happening, because every single person's different. Every person has different trauma, different levels of trauma, different stress, different developmental issues, or good development. And so you can't just do one thing and it works for everybody, which is what
Right.
Scientology thinks you can do.
Exactly.
Because everyone's different,
Right.
And when I'm studying this stuff about psychology right now in my course, like the sheer vagueness of it, like
I know.
there's theories, and I'm expected to come up with my own kind of approach. There's no like Scientology is so much easier, is what I'm trying to say. There's no prepared list for a person in psychology like there is in Scientology, right? And so you really have to figure it out and figure out what's going on with that individual to truly give them the help they need, right? So
Yeah,
anyway.
and I mean, when you get into that kind of stuff, the way a person is quote evaluated in Scientology is all based on pseudoscience. It's you know what I mean? It's made up stuff, or it's stuff taken from here or there and sort of and collated together to make it look like it makes sense, and it doesn't. But people, this is what you're taught, this is what you're indoctrinated into, and you think that this is the truth.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, in some cases, some stuff actually does help people in Scientology, but it's really hit and miss.
Yeah, because everyone's individual.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if
so
it
stupid.
worked all the time, then it would work all the time.
Right. Yeah, and there is an appealing thing, in my opinion anyways, with Scientology. It's kind of like, it's like a recipe. You do A, B, and C, and you're supposed to get X result. So that, like for some people who like to follow that kind of, an organized way of doing things, it's very appealing. It was to me, like the conditions. You know, that actually was appealing. It's like, oh, I can change something in my life just by following these few steps. Like,
Yeah.
theoretically, it sounds really great. But the insidious part of it is that you're being brainwashed and indoctrinated into this cult.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's
Yeah.
this surface level appeal to it, which is why people glom on. But then the underlying evil is that you're being brainwashed into a cult. It's so messed up.
Yeah, and no one knows they're being brainwashed into a cult.
Exactly.
You just don't know. That's the point.
Right.
That's how cults work. You
Yeah.
know? Anyway. All right, so this next clip is
Okay.
60 minutes. This is a shorter one. It's a minute and a half. And this is I think what was occurring with this is, so Peter Overton's the reporter, and before any interview, there's a list of things that are not allowed to be talked about in this whole celebrity world. And it seems to me like Peter Overton was told not to talk about something, and he did it anyway, where he's talking about Nicole Kidman. And so
Oh.
this is Tom Cruise, Scientologist first, putting Peter's ethics in by not
Ooh,
listening to the rules.
he's
And
young.
let me know if you can't hear this when it plays.
Was Nicole the love of your life?
What do you mean, Peter?
You were married for 10 years.
Listen, we raised children. You know, I mean, how do you
You're
answer
struggling.
that? How do you answer that question? She's someone that you know,
Oh my
I
God.
plan on getting married again.
You do?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
And having kids?
absolutely.
But Nicole was a major part of your life and a love of your life at the time.
I love Nick very much. There's no question.
Would you like Nicole to remarry?
Yes, I want Nicole to be happy. That's what I want.
And do you have a relationship where you talk, it's a parenting relationship, and talk professionally about each other's
Why don't
work?
we listen? Here's the thing, Peter.
Yeah.
You're stepping over a line now. You're stepping over a line. You know you are.
Ooh.
I suppose they're questions, though,
Peter.
that people want to know.
Peter, you want to know. Take
And
responsibility for what you want to know. Don't say what other people. This is a conversation that I'm having with you right now.
you're right.
Okay. So I'm just telling you right now. Okay. Just put your manners back in.
Do you think I was out of line?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I apologize for that sincerely.
What a dick.
Honestly, that's one of my favorite clips of him.
That's a
Now,
doozer.
to be fair, and I'll be totally honest with it, that reporter is what I would call a 1.1 person. The look on his face. Am I
Yeah.
crossing the line? It's like, yeah, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Good for him,
But
though.
yeah, I mean, fuck this guy, Tom Cruise, for being such a dick, right? And trying to avoid real hard questions about himself, because that's
Yes.
how he's gotten away with it for 40 years as an
Yes.
actor. People aren't holding his feet to the fire, because if they do, he doesn't go on their show ever again,
Yeah.
which means the advertisers are not happy, right? So,
Yeah.
and there have been other clips where he's been in like an award show line or something like that, red carpet, and people have approached him and asked him these questions, and he basically like tells them off, and because he can't answer these hard questions, right?
Yeah.
And he gives these
But
non-answers and whatever. So
But I mean, you know, if you're in an uncomfortable in the real world, if you're in an uncomfortable situation like that, why don't you just say, you know, I don't want to answer that question. It's too personal. Instead, he pulls out the I'm the asshole dickhead card and says, "Get your manners in." It's like, ew. Like, that is just the arrogance that oozes out of him, and that's so typical of a Scientologist. You
Yep.
know, it's like I'm putting your ethics in because I don't like what you're doing instead of just being polite about it and being like human.
Yeah. And I'm doing it for you because you're not doing it. Right?
Yeah.
So your life is now in my hands.
Yeah.
Your actions, now I have to uh, take care of your actions.
Yeah.
And
It's like,
it's
why do you have to
unacceptable.
treat people like that? Well, what gives you the right to call people out like that? You don't have the right to do that, right?
Yeah.
If you are in an uncomfortable situation and you feel you are being offended, it's like and you're on TV, like you're on whatever, being interviewed, like just be professional and say, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer that question." Or, you know, and then leave it at that, not like, "Get your manners in," or "Get your manners in." You
Yeah,
know?
that's right. You need the Xenu eyes.
You know? It's so stupid.
That's called tone 40, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that
Those
wasn't my best tone
those
40,
Xenu eyes.
the Xeno eyes. Yeah, they weren't as bad there. That interview older than the Matt Lauer one? Do you know?
It's no, it's around this. It's
Around the
around the
same
same
time?
time.
Okay.
It would have been maybe it would have been a bit before because it sounds like he probably wasn't with Katie at that point. But I don't know.
Mm, yeah.
To be
Anyway,
honest, I couldn't. I don't really care about celebrity stuff, and so I don't pay attention to this kind of stuff unless it's like
yeah,
interesting to me on a Scientological level. I think there's way too much focus on the Scientology celebrity scene in this community right now.
yeah,
Uh, it's kind of fucking irrelevant. The
yeah,
fact is, people are still being abused
yeah.
individually at every single organization. There are still children being put through purification rundown and stuff. And so, why do we give a shit about what Lincoln Park or fucking Tom Cruise does unless it's about the destructive nature of Scientology?
Yeah,
That's the way
and
I
there's
look at
still
it. But
there's a lot of aging Scientologists in there, and they
yes,
don't have a pot to fucking piss in, and
nope,
they have no support whatsoever. You know, it's really, really disgusting and very tragic. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, more stuff needs to be said about that and somehow, I mean, honestly, I don't have all the answers, obviously, but it sure would be nice to put some focus back on the real important stuff. And
yeah,
that's
it's.
what
I
this
mean,
Canadian has to say about that.
well, we were talking about this earlier, and now this is going to go off on a complete tangent.
I
Is
know.
who's doing Scientology content right now?
Yeah,
Like, there are a few. Don't get me wrong. There
yeah,
are. You know,
yeah,
um, Phil Jones just did an amazing video about front groups and how Haggis Basher and Michelle Rumball and his wife Willie went around Niagara area and started educating people about Drug Free World because Phil's sister has been distributing all these pamphlets and stuff with her helpers,
yeah,
and that's a great video. Like this is what we have to do. We have to really educate the truth. And
yep.
the more people are talking about, oh, this person hurt my feelings and blah, 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 and all that bullshit,
Who fucking
dirty
cares?
laundry that should be dealt with offline.
Yeah,
Instead, they're going online and getting thousands of people watching at once. While, the really good videos that are really exposing Scientology get basically no coverage. I'll be honest, it's really disheartening for me as a creator, as a person who is trying to do something, when it basically gets no traction. Because it's I guess it's
yeah.
not what most people are looking for. But
Yeah, and the
whatever,
stuff that
rant over.
yeah. I mean, in all honesty, Jeff, I don't do a whole lot of content. I mean, I do watch, but it's disappointing. I don't really want to do a lot of content because it doesn't seem to be effective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound defeatist, but there needs to be more grassroots kind of on the ground stuff being done. And you're right, to educate people, because they don't know, because
Yeah.
they have, like in Toronto, it's crazy. They infiltrate. They have
Mm.
been in the community for so long, for so many years, that they've managed to weasel their way into all sorts of government programs, schools, like you and Andrea and Haggis Basher. You guys are really doing a phenomenal job exposing that stuff. And that's what needs to be done. People need to know that Scientology has front groups, and they're actually trying to brainwash your kids, or people who are trying to get off of drugs. That's the
The
important stuff.
Yeah, and the amount of people who get into Scientology because of Scientology is
Hmm.
very small. The amount
Hmm.
of people that get in through front groups, so wise groups is probably the biggest one.
Huge. Yeah.
You know, and Drug Free World, Way to Happiness, not really.
Yeah.
Uh, they've removed Scientology from volunteer ministers essentially when they advertise. They just call it a disaster relief organization. Um,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that. It's Those are the things that need to be focused on, in my opinion, in
Yeah.
order to educate the public at large. You know, I
Yeah.
think, and I'll bring up a comment here from Julie. Thank you, Julie, for this. I don't disagree with this. Scientology celebrities make me mad because they know what's going on behind those walls. Most do not necessarily know what's going on,
Yeah.
but they stay silent. Some do, for sure, especially the bigger ones. They should be using the enormous power they have for good. 100% agree. I don't think that anybody should be forced to
No.
speak out. Um, and we don't actually know at what level, but I do believe that people who are in a position of authority or have a larger audience, like celebrities, should be talking about the more important things as much as possible. But
Yeah.
again, it is their choice. You know, I just think that
Yeah.
if you've decided to take on the
Exactly.
mantle, you should be taking on the mantle, or just not. You know, that's the way I kind of look at it. I have a
Yeah.
very small channel. I get hundreds of views on my videos. I keep doing it, you know, I want to walk away. I
I
really
know.
do, and we've had conversations about this. I want to leave this community because of all the bullshit that's going on.
Yeah.
You know, I've separated myself from SPTV completely because I don't I've never agreed with it, and I've said that, like, it's weird to me to have SPTV in general. Um, I just want to be a voice that can tell the truth and have
Yeah.
no worries about what I say, whether it's accurate in my worldview, is up to me. Um, but I can't not say things.
Yeah.
You know, I just can't. As as difficult as it is sometimes, um, I have to keep talking out because my life was destroyed. Your life was destroyed. You're my closest friend, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how you feel on
Mm,
that,
I do too.
um,
You are my
but
closest friend.
people's lives are being destroyed daily. I'm in contact with people who are still not speaking out because they're afraid of losing their children, their family
Yeah.
members. You know, this fear should never be there, and that's why I
Yeah.
have to keep talking out. But
And the other point I'd like to make is this space needs to be safe. It
yes, absolutely.
you need to be able to speak about your experience and not be attacked for it,
Yeah,
or do what you feel is the right thing to do. I mean, within reason, obviously, you don't do anything illegal, you know, but
or at least don't get caught.
yeah. But honestly, it's like we were in a cult. We were told what to do, what time to take a shit. You know, all these fucked up things. I'm getting a bit angry right now.
Mhm.
And it's like we can't have. It's hard to be in a community that is doing that kind of stuff and hurting each other. Everybody has a valid point. I understand that. But some things need to be just discussed on a personal level, one-on-one, to keep the safe space of the community.
Yeah.
Right? And attacking, I mean, I'm sure I'm going to lose subscribers. I don't give a shit because I hardly have any anyways. So I'm just going to go for it. It's like it needs to be safe. If we're attacking each other, if we're calling each other out, if we're airing our dirty laundry, it's not going to help those people who are coming out, jumping into onto whoever's channel and going like, what is going on? What is this? Right?
Yeah.
It's
There
it's
is
it's
no
unsafe.
Scientologist in Scientology right now that would ever consider coming into SPTV
Hell no.
world community. I mean, not even like SPTV, but like the anti-Scientology YouTube situation as it is now, and would
Yeah,
feel safe, and
yeah,
would not just be completely confirm what Scientology thinks of the outside world. Period.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
one.
yeah. I mean, I understand there's gonna be differences. That's cool. Fine. Have your differences. But let's keep it a safe space.
Yeah.
Let's just let people do their thing and help each other. It not and not tear each other down. Oh my
Yeah.
God, there was so much of that done in Scientology. You know,
Yep.
it
And
was
it's just
all the
repeating
time.
patterns, repeating patterns, repeating patterns. It's so obvious. It's
Yeah,
so apparent to me. When you step out, it's just the same shit, right? It's just
yeah,
a different pile.
yeah.
And I will
And,
say before we
mhm,
move on, because I don't want to make this about talking about the drama
right.
necessarily, um, but I would like to say that a really good saying is if you air your dirty laundry out in public, it makes the entire neighborhood stink,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So put put your dirty laundry in the washer, deal with it some other way. Let's get on the goal of actually exposing Scientology
Yeah, and
for real.
everybody brings such unique things to the community. It can be so cool. You know, it can do a lot of good. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. So there.
Haggis Masher, this is why I fart in private. Yes.
Exactly. So nobody can smell your stink.
Yeah.
That's how it should
Anyway,
be done. Sorry.
if anyone here
I
needs
have
to let one rip, just let it rip as long as you're alone.
I'll turn my mic off, promise.
Yeah. Oh, uh-oh. All right. So
Okay, what are we talking about
with
now?
that very, very aggressive tangent, off into left field over with.
Oh boy, this should be interesting.
This is the worst, and this is so it's kind of funny. Like those two other clips were from like 20 years ago, respectively. And so you thought, oh well, he's changed, or that was him going through a time or whatever. No, no, Scientology teachings are so deeply ingrained in Tom Cruise um, that oh, I'm sorry, Karen.
I
I feel
know.
so
I thought
bad for
about that.
anybody named Karen. I'm sorry, Karen. Let's call him a
Yeah,
Tom. Let's
yeah.
change the name to Tom. Anyway, so this
A
is the clip,
dickhead.
the audio that was leaked from Tom Cruise absolutely ripping into people during COVID out on the set of Mission Impossible 7, I think it was. And this is only a few years ago. So nothing's changed. In fact, this is the most perfect, pure Tom Cruise that you will ever hear. And this is what it's like to be ripped apart by a Sea Org member or a staff member, senior. Like, this is what it was like daily for us if we were in trouble. It is very difficult to listen to. So, yeah,
Oh God. Okay.
prepare yourself.
You're back there in Hollywood making movies right now because of us. Because they believe in us and what we're doing. I'm on the phone with every studio at night. Insurance companies. Producers. And they're looking at us and using us to make their movies. We are creating thousands of jobs. I don't ever want to see it again. Ever. And if you don't do it, you're fired. And I see you do it again, you're gone. And anyone on this crew does it. That's it. And you too, and you too, and you. Don't you ever do it again. That's it. No apologies. You can tell it to the people that are losing their homes because our industry is shut down. It's not going to put food on their table or pay for their college education. That's what I sleep with every night. The future of the industry. So I'm sorry, I'm beyond your apologies. I have told you, and now I want it. And if you don't do it, you're out. We are not shutting this movie down.
I see some comments coming up. Sorry if I didn't set up context for this. This is him yelling at someone for not wearing a mask on set. And just for the record, please keep any kind of COVID masks ideas or thoughts. Please keep them to yourself. Whether you believe in masks or not is irrelevant to this conversation. Thank you.
Is it understood? If I see it again, you're gone. And so are you. So you're going to cost him his job. And I see it on the set, you're gone. And you're gone. That's it. Am I clear? Do you understand what I want? Do you understand the responsibility that you have? Because I will deal with your reason. And if you can't be reasonable, and I can't deal with your logic, you're fired. That's it. That is it.
So that was it. Have you ever been yelled at like that, Gabe?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And this is this is what Scientology is like behind the scenes. It's certainly more so for Sea Org members, but if you're in a position of authority, like a mid-level, this is the kind of stuff that you had to deal with being yelled at if you didn't do your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nasty.
Yeah. And this was, I mean, he did have good reason to be upset for sure, because it was a very stressful time in the movie industry and so forth. But that was so over the top, and that was pure Scientology right there.
Can you highlight the Scientology rundown comment?
Scientology
Second from
rundown.
The bottom. Yeah. That's the name of her handle there. She says,
sorry.
I was yelled at. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah, this is when I was leaving the Sea Org, just before I completely left Scientology, I had the Haz at Bridge, who was a 6'2" German guy, fairly young, absolutely ripping into me like this, saying how much money I wasted the Sea Org, how much dev tea I created, or wasted time, how they worked so hard to get me here and all this effort was for nothing, and now you're just abandoning us. Like I was berated for like 3 hours in a small room. And I stood my ground and I said, no, fuck you, I'm leaving. And you don't say this to a Sea Org member who's like at this level. You know, he was
Yeah.
a pretty high up in bridge. And yeah, like watching this for the first time a while ago, it's like this is Scientology response in its purest form. This is tone 40. This is the pinnacle of what
Yeah.
Scientology teaches ethics to be. So, yeah.
I had similar encounters with the commanding officer in Toronto, where I was locked in a room as well and yelled at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what are your crimes? You know, do you know that you're actually stopping Scientology? You're stopping mankind. You know, that kind of
Yep.
stuff. That's a pretty heavy thing to put on people. When you're there actually as a volunteer. These guys who he's yelling at were actually employed. They were getting paid.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you know, and the kicker is we stayed. I still stayed. I stayed much longer, many years
Yep.
after all that, you know?
Please, sir, may I have some more?
Yeah. And I'm not that kind of person, but it's that authority, you know, that is over you. I mean, you are fearful. I mean, after that, I left. That a few days after that, I blew. Was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah,
I
you got raked over the coals.
Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty gross. And I mean, and then, you know, when training in LA in Big Blue, that kind of stuff happened all the time. You know, if you even spoke up. Well, I mean, when you're an outer org trainee and you're talking to Sea Org members, that's the kind of stuff you get in your face, you know? You're here. It's a
I wanted to
privilege
bring.
to be here. Yeah.
So Agus Basher is saying I would walk out on the spot the instant that tirade began. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly. You know, I don't know, like if you're in Scientology, obviously it's a different story, but like if your whole life is if you just been through a pandemic and you're desperate for money and stuff, like you might maybe you wouldn't, but a lot of people would just have to take that.
Mhm. A lot of people
You know,
do
like
take abuse in the workplace.
because if you walk out on that, you don't have a job anymore. And you probably won't get another job because you'll be blacklisted, especially Hollywood. You
Yeah.
know, like it's a
Yeah,
small world. It's a
I'm
big
sure
world, but it's small too.
yeah, and I'm sure Cruz has some clout in that Hollywood industry,
Yeah,
right? I'm sure he
absolutely.
employs a lot of people, you know,
Yep.
which he thinks gives him that right to bitch people out like that. It's
Yep.
gross.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So that was pretty intense.
Yeah. Anyways.
Just reading some of the interesting comments here. All right. Well, you know, we didn't want to get involved in any kind of drama or anything, but you know what? We did, so fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at selfless self. I'm just going to come out with it.
I didn't want to bring that one up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I
Is it
mean,
okay?
no, I mean you already did, so it's in there. You can
Yeah.
if you want to comment on it. I have a lot of strong opinions on this situation. I'm not going to get into them really deeply here. But if you have
Yeah.
something to say, feel free.
I don't think we actually said it's just drama. First of all, selfless self. Let's get the facts right here, okay? I have respect for you. But I also have an opinion, and I think things should be actually kept more professional. I think things have been just out of control. So yes, yeah, I don't know what else. It is important that they're handled well. What I don't think they are being handled well at all. Otherwise, I wouldn't say anything. And it takes a lot for me to come on a live stream and speak my opinion like this, because generally I don't. And it is airing dirty laundry because there's a lot of personal attacks. And that's where I take offense to, when there's people attacking people personally who have known each other for many, many years. It's just, to me, it's very unprofessional, and it disrespects the rest of the community who actually want to learn about Scientology and help get people out of Scientology and help educate people in Scientology, not just yell at them and tell them how cuckoo they are. So I'm saying my piece on this. It is drama to a degree. It is. Otherwise, what else do you call it?
Yeah. So the way I look at it, there are conflicts happening, undeniable. There's disagreement. There is definitely attacks, public attacks. There's behind the scenes attacks. There's personality differences, personality conflicts.
Yeah.
There's expectations. There's things that are not met. But if you go on and you have an issue with someone, and you go online, you monetize that stream, and you start calling people names and attacking people directly in a public forum, when this could all be dealt with privately, which is the only actual way it's going to get solved.
Yeah.
Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
There has never been a time where someone's gone online and bitched someone out, and it's like, oh, it magically resolves itself. It just isn't a thing. So we have to be honest about the intentions, to not necessarily the disagreement, but why it's being put online. Because if you look at numbers don't lie. More people are interested in watching this drama or conflict or whatever you want to call it play out than it is dealing with Scientology and actually spreading the truth. The numbers don't lie. So let's just be clear about that.
Yeah.
I couldn't give a shit if people liked each other or not, and just never talked again. I couldn't care less. That happens all the time. But it doesn't need to be aired out in public. And all it does is create an unsafe space for people who might be looking for help. And they stumble into this mass of stuff that confirms what they've been told their entire life, that this environment out here is unsafe,
dangerous,
that people are arguing, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my point, right? Like, it's just, there's no point to it that will resolve the argument by going online.
And
period.
It's just escalating. And that's the thing. It's like everybody's escalating it, and it's not going to get solved. It's getting uglier and uglier.
Yeah.
Who's that woman? Yes.
Let me just say one more thing. Yeah. If you don't agree with the foundation, you don't agree with the person who is running the foundation, whether it's Aftermath, whether it's the Cancer Foundation, start your own foundation.
Yeah, exactly.
Period. If you don't agree with it, don't support it. Sorry, but it's not helpful to bitch about things. It just isn't.
Yeah, and selfless. No, we're not jealous. We're doing our own thing.
I'm not jealous.
It's like you kind of you're misreading us, unfortunately. And you do you have your people, you know them personally. That's great. All we want to do is let people know that Scientology is really bad. I don't want to really discuss any personal issues of people and things like that. That's what's important to me. And I have every fucking right to say what I want to say, as does everybody
Without
else.
being judged for it.
Yeah.
If that's your opinion, that's your opinion. Go for it. But if you're doing it to stir the pot and make money off of it, that's where I have a problem with it,
Yeah.
in my
I
opinion.
don't make any money. I don't make nothing. Zero.
Yeah, you're not monetized at all.
No, I'm not fucking monetized, people. I do this
Yeah.
because I want people to know what it was like to be in a cult.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
at this moment, how upsetting it is for me personally to see the conflict. And my biggest worry is people are not going to watch and not going to get the information that they deserve because of the conflict. So
Yep.
chill the fuck out and let's get on with the show. You know what I mean? Let's get on with the education. All right,
Focus
I'm
on
done.
Scientology. Put your shit, deal with your shit offline. Period.
Yeah.
There's no point to it. And that's it. Selfless, thank you very much for all your comments and engagement. I think that's all we're going to take up on this. So you can continue to comment if you want, but
Yeah.
We're not going to discuss anymore. All right. Comments?
You have another clip?
Questions?
Oh yes.
No,
please.
we don't. That's it. That's all the clips. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I feel like
I'm kind of glad
limited.
because that last one was a real doozer. And
It's
and
pretty
that is a
tough.
perfect example of what happens. And it seems to be happening outside of Scientology as well. You know, that, and he's taking his attitude and indoctrination into the real world. And yeah, that's the stuff that needs to be exposed.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I love this. This is one of my favorite clips in the turtleneck sweater video, where
Yes.
Tom. This is the leaked video that started all the protests when they tried to get it taken down off the internet for Anonymous to start doing their thing. And Tom Cruise asks, "Have you ever met an SP?" And then starts laughing maniacally. Oh my God, that laugh was just
Yeah. That was creepy.
amazing. Yeah. SP Chef, unfortunately, my trauma response is to retreat, shut myself up, and put my
Yeah.
head down. Yes, that is also one of the more common ones that you'll see as well.
Yeah,
I've been,
and I'm afraid people will do that with this environment. And I sure hope
yep.
not.
Well, and I do, because I don't feel like being in this an environment that kind of sucks. I like it when
Yeah.
it's a bit more lighthearted and fun, and we all tell our stories and
Yeah.
bond with each other about a common enemy, which is
Yeah.
Scientology. Scientology is the real enemy.
Exactly.
Period. Question. Oh,
Yes.
I think referring
Did
to
her
Brooke Shields, maybe.
Yeah, I think.
Did her apologize after because he got caught?
Probably.
Yeah.
Did he apologize because he got caught? Yeah. I think he invited her to his wedding.
I think Brooke Shields actually wrote a book going over her experience with postpartum depression, which is
Oh, really?
a very, very challenging time for a lot of women. And so I think maybe there's something in there. Who knows? That'd be hilarious if she
Yeah, and did
recounted
she
this from
say
her
Tom
own
Cruise
point of view.
Yeah, and did she say Tom Cruise didn't help me at all with this? He actually made it worse?
Oh, apparently Hagsbasher said she went to his wedding.
Yeah,
I'm not
she
sure which
did.
wedding. The one with Tom Cruise or
No,
Katie
Katie.
Holmes?
Yep.
There you go.
Weird, huh?
Okay, let me unstar that one and move on. Susan Everett. He obviously never saw anyone in the throes of a psychotic breakdown.
Right.
And that is that has been the most challenging aspect to this course I'm taking, is watching real therapy sessions where someone is going through a very difficult time. And it's not necessarily watching it, because I've got my TRs in, but the ability to know what to say and what to do in that situation, that's the
Mhm.
most challenging thing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, in Scientology, you know how that kind of stuff is handled? Yeah, you're put on what's called a watch. I won't use the other term because I would have to explain it. Well, it's actually called the type
And
3 watch, right?
yeah,
Where
type
type
3
3
watch.
is when somebody's going cuckoo,
Yeah,
according to Scientology. So you're isolated. That's how they handle psychotic breaks.
yeah,
You're isolated, kept away from people. Um, it's really, people don't talk to you. You are told. I was on one of those watches once, for
yeah,
actually twice, for people who had just come back after doing OT3, as a matter of fact. And this is the important stuff, guys. So somebody came back, two people came back that I know of who did OT3, and they actually had psychotic breaks. And all Scientology, the people there in charge would just keep an eye on them and make sure they didn't unalive themselves.
yeah.
No other help whatsoever. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it happened. It's happened quite a few times.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Lisa McPherson case. It's, I can't remember that other girl in Florida. She was OT8.
Whitney Mills.
This is, yeah, it's just disgusting.
Yeah, this is the grossness that needs to be handled, and why we need to
Yeah,
focus on Scientology.
exactly.
Period. Scientology rundown. My trauma response is freeze or fawn. I hate
Hmm.
fighting, and I hate getting angry, and that was constantly getting me in trouble in the SO. That it
Right,
would, for sure. Yeah, you're not allowed to disagree with anyone who is above you.
right.
That's the key.
Yeah,
You
it's
can do
called
whatever you want
backlash.
to someone below, but not above.
Yeah. Yeah, and if
And
you
the
do talk back, and express your opinions, you become what's called ethics bait, meaning you're in ethics trouble all the time.
Yep. Yeah, it's it's really funny though, because you're never secure on staff or in the Sea Org. I think
Yeah.
a little bit. Well, I guess I shouldn't even say a little bit more so. I think both are pretty equal. But if you're in the on staff or the Sea Org, you might be, let's say, the captain one day or the commanding officer or whatever, and then you'll get in some ethics trouble or just become less useful, and
That's
you'll
right.
be knocked down to like the call-in IC,
Yep.
who a perfect example of this is Brad Melnichuk in the CLO in Canada. He was the CO Able, I think he was. Is
Yep.
it Able or SMI? Is Able.
I
So like,
think he was both, actually.
was he? Okay, well, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But anyway, he was in charge of some front groups of Scientology, Schooled and Wise and stuff like that. And when I went and saw him in April, when I protested outside the CLO, I asked him what post he was holding, and it was the call-in charge, which is such a massive demotion. And
Huge.
so now the commanding officer, who might have been the call-in IC before, can now start yelling at him. And it's just
Yeah.
like, you just never
Yeah.
know. And so you got to be careful who you yell at, because if you can keep flipping, you just never know
Yeah.
where you're going to be
Yeah.
next week. And it's a
It's a
part of,
strange. Go ahead, Jeff.
oh yeah, it's just a part of destabilizing you and keeping you able to be
Under
conformed to an environment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's a terrible way to be treated.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't know what's
So
gonna happen to you from one day to the next. You're blindsided.
yeah, and so Freeze and Fawn, back to this comment here. interestingly, for a lot of the time when I left Scientology, I always kind of consider myself as being a fight response, but I
Mm-hmm.
also kind of recognize freeze, because it's not just like, as like, picture you being attacked by a bear and you going, ah, and freezing,
Yeah.
but it's not doing things. Depression can it can come out as depression. So you're just kind of like, you're on the couch all the time. You're watching a lot of TV.
Yeah.
You're scrolling on your phone all the time, and you're not going out and doing the things that you feel you should be doing, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
So it's not just like the typical, like, you're moving and then you stop. It can also be stopping your dreams, stopping your goals, not doing things for yourself that you should be doing. Um, just
I
a
can relate to that.
Yeah.
You shut
So
down.
it's
Yeah.
it was Janice Selby, who's a counselor in Canada here, who's a bit of a cohort, and she runs a support group. Um, she gave us a list of different ways that these different trauma responses can manifest as part of treatment, and it was interesting to look at things like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Like, this is how it can manifest. It's really cool.
That's very interesting. That kind of breakdown of stuff. I mean, you can say depression, but what does depression really look like in real life? Or what is the freeze response to trauma? What does that really look like? That's really important information.
Yeah. Like, depression doesn't have to look like depression. It can look like anger. It's just how
Yep.
it manifests, right? And it's
Yep.
kind of different for everyone, and that's why it's important not to just treat every single person the same.
Right.
All right,
What do you
let's
have?
move on. Julie, this interview infuriated me. How
Good
dare he
word.
tell a woman how she should treat her own postpartum depression? This a-hole didn't go to medical school, but he's
Yes.
sitting there acting like he did. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yep. He acts like an authority.
Yeah, and he shouldn't be telling anybody how to treat their own body.
No.
Period.
Or what to do,
You
what
know?
they can and cannot do, and all that other kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
Stay in your
It
own lane. Know your boundaries. Those are the kind of things that people need to be reminded of all the time, especially
Yep.
when they come out of a cult. There are
Yep.
boundaries. There is respect, which he obviously doesn't have for people. Yeah. And it's just simply respecting people. It's so stupid. Like, come on.
Exactly. Infuriated me too, and I think I was still in Scientology when I saw that interview. Julie had a friend in college with ADHD, and she
Mm,
needed her medication, and because they struggled without it.
yeah.
Yep. And
I
again,
have a
everyone's different.
Yeah, I have a family member who has anxiety, and if they don't take the meds, even though it's on a very small dose, they cannot cope,
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I knew about this when I was in Scientology, and I was just like, when you hear, a family member, because, you want, it's like you think you know everything. So you want to say, well, they shouldn't be on that kind of medication.
Yeah.
Have you tried this, that, and the other thing? It's like, who are you to tell me what I should and shouldn't do with my child?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
fortunately, I kept my mouth shut, which was the right thing to do, right? If you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say anything. But,
Yeah.
and then I learned a little more and a little more about the situation. Like, people make snap comments and snap judgments about others when they actually don't really know what's going on with them for real, because they don't take the time to listen.
Or don't have the opportunity to, like, I think there is a lot of there's a lot of instant responses and assumptions that at least I've experienced with myself. Like, say if someone cuts you off in traffic or they're speeding or driving dangerously, and you're like, well, what an asshole. It's like, is he though? Or did he just find out that his mother's in the hospital? Or did he
Yeah,
just have a really big fight with his wife? Like, there's something usually else going on that's
exactly.
causing it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. When people act irrationally, something else is going on deeper. It's, that's just the way people are. They meant those are like, I know if I haven't eaten, I'm pretty grumpy.
yeah.
Or if I'm in pain, I don't tolerate, like I have a high pain tolerance, but emotionally, it's like I just shut down, or I get really angry and I'm short. It's like people react differently. So like it's really important to take the time to understand why somebody's acting the way they are. Like Tom Cruise,
Yep.
he's just nuts. That's my,
Well,
I've
that's what's
I've
going on with
listened
him.
enough.
That's my completely unprofessional opinion.
He's a
He's
wacko.
wackadoodle. Wackadoodle Tom. Speaking of Tom Cruise,
Oh, hello.
Julie Markham says, if Tom Cruise were treated like Sea Org members, I don't believe he would stay for a second. He loves having his butt kissed by little Davy.
Yep.
Can't add any more to that. Agree.
Big sloppy
Agree.
kisses on his
Yeah.
batoonie.
Boy, that's a lot of brown in that nose. And the funny thing is David Miscavige barely has to bend down.
Oh dear. Oh God. No.
I can
We're
make
gonna get
short
on.
jokes because I'm short. So, Jesus is God says, take Alzheimer's, for example. There's no treatment
Yes.
for it. Nothing that helps, prevents, or cures. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember what that was in reference to, but it is a fact. Thank you. A Scientology rundown. That's a very good point, Gabrielle. I would so easy.
It would be
It would so
it would
easy. It would be
easy if
so
there was
easy if there was a
formula. Oh yeah.
formula for every issue. Oh, we're talking about the conditions formulas,
Conditions.
and you just do that, and everything is fine and dandy.
Yep.
Everybody's
Like,
looking for answers. Well, that's what they teach you in Scientology.
it's as easy as baking a cake.
Yeah.
That's how you get over addiction, or that's how you get over obsessive compulsive things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff you would do a condition on, or if you're habitually late. What other that would actually be a good thing to talk about. It's like all the things that are solved in Scientology by doing conditions.
Well, everything, because everything's
Everything.
staticized.
Exactly.
Yeah. And all you have to do is follow the formula and you're good.
Yeah.
It's not true because there's
Yeah.
other factors, and Scientology doesn't consider other factors, because anything that happens, you're in control of. So there can't be any factors. And if other factors are affecting you, then you're PTS, which means you're out of ethics, which means you have to do a condition.
My head's spinning.
I know, right? And that's the
Exactly.
point,
Yeah.
because you're getting confused. You're going to be more easy to be controlled. And all of a sudden you're in the cult.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep you on your toes.
Yeah. All right, let's
Oh,
do one more, because
there's
I think
one
this
that I
is
do
a funny one.
Yeah.
Peter Anderson, question for the end. So
the
there you go,
end.
Peter. You're at the
Okay.
end. Your thoughts on Dave Miscavige posting 5 videos to his YouTube channel in the past week? I hadn't noticed that because I don't follow him.
Wow.
We wouldn't want anyone to miss the opportunity to comment on the posts.
Yes.
Well, there you go. I think there's a really big push to make it look like things are going well for Scientology, because things are not going well for Scientology.
Yeah.
And that would kind of explain the PR, because that's what Scientology does. It's big old PR machine.
Yeah. That's how they solve everything.
Yeah. I wonder how long it'll take for them to turn comments off, or what kind of moderation is going on there.
Oh, I'm sure they don't even allow comments.
Well, let me just take a quick peek then, just to see what we're working with here. Was it at David Miscavige, I think?
Yeah.
There he is. He's got what? No way. This cannot be his.
What? Is it YouTube channel?
Yeah, but this is obviously, this can't be real. He's got 29 subscribers. This can't be real.
Hope so.
I see that 5 days ago. Interesting. I'll have to take a look at that. Maybe it's just a joke video, but who knows? Yeah. Cool. Well, Gabe, thank
Yes,
you
dear.
for chatting about Tom Cruise. As disgusting as it is sometimes, I think it's important to recognize that this is what Scientology teaches you to be. This is what putting ethics in looks like on a higher level.
Yeah. And just one thing before we go, I do want to acknowledge people who are in the chat agreeing with what we have been saying
Like Ryan?
about the whole community. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
and I'm
you.
not looking for an echo chamber or anything.
No.
Everyone can have their own opinion. Feel free. But I just think that things need to get back to attacking Scientology, because that's what this is for.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what is it? Right?
It's a cult.
What's the point? Yeah, well, it's not a cult, but
I just like saying that all the time. It's a cult.
let's just focus
Yes.
on Scientology.
Please.
Deal with your own shit on your own time.
Yeah. And I tell you, Scientology is a huge subject. It's massive. So there's no shortage of things to talk about.
And the way I look at it, at this point, the more people not talking about Scientology means the more that Scientology is winning.
Yes.
So
we don't
time to
want
step it up.
Scientology to win.
Make sure you're following Gabe at Escaping the Cultiverse, as well as Philip Jones, which I think is at Phil Doggo.
Yeah.
And of course, anybody else who is speaking about Scientology, anybody who isn't, if you don't agree with their stuff, just unsubscribe. Get it out of your feed. Let's focus on Scientology. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. Yep. 100% agree.
Well, this should be an interesting result from this video. Thanks, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you, Gabe, for joining me. And we will see you on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe.